Death or politics? Faith in morality versus hatred in politics. I gave this a title. Now, I wrote this before the incident at the Capitol. I'm not going to go into that because there can be no agreement. But here is something you can't ignore, because if you die, you won't have a chance to air your views on democracy. And this is where we've become stupid. Now, the other day, the second person I knew of died of COVID. He was a big man, both physically and in terms of his spirit. A fierce football player as a boy, he dominated the field. But when he became older, he became a restaurateur and found his power in helping people who didn't have enough to eat, feeding them in droves over the holidays. One day recently, he found he had COVID, as millions have before. And within a few weeks, after being on a ventilator off and on, he left us. Now, this is a loss, but unfortunately, we've seen too many of these stories which seem like abstractions to most of us. The names and even the pictures we've seen on TV of the victims represent simply a moment's pain regarding people we've never met. Once you know someone who's lost someone, or worse yet, know someone who died, I will challenge you to ignore this and feel righteous in treating this like a small problem or a political issue. I've been like many people, frightened and grief-stricken. Now, this particular victim, I've spent time with his sister, crying and grieving. What she's lost can't be ignored. A part of her life, a critical part of her life, gone forever. I've come to realize that the inhumane denial of the effects of this pandemic is because our country is so large. The deaths we've experienced represent 0.1% of our national population. And for some of you, that will mean the pandemic is not a problem. But keep in mind that the numbers have grown horribly since the beginning of the pandemic. And once the numbers start to grow, they grow faster and faster and faster. That is the nature of disease. We're already losing control of the virus, with our hospitals being overrun with COVID patients, straining capacity. What will happen in a year? We could have hundreds of thousands of people dying each day. The vaccine is not being fast-tracked by the Army, as our president promised. And he just tweeted that it was up to the states, as he's done all along. These states do not have the money to efficiently distribute the vaccine. We know this. It's been said over and over again. And if you want to ignore it, then just wait until something bad happens to you. And there's an issue of morality and faith that does not allow for this. Have you considered that? Do you believe that it's acceptable to allow others to die if there is any way to stop it? Can you live with what you've been told is evil by your own faiths and your leaders? I've been lucky that only 2 people entered my orbit who succumbed to COVID. I try to imagine what it's like for doctors and nurses on the front line, watching soul by soul fade away into the night. Do they become numb, or does it break them? In facing this last death, I thought of a doctor who, seemingly okay with her daily horror show in a COVID ward, had unexpectedly killed herself. The point of this video is not the usual complex examination of politics and beltway motivations. We are past that, and we are well past partisan interests. As some of you know, I am not a fan of the two-party system. I'll put it this way. We are down to stopping the pandemic or giving up having a country or an economy. For those of you who are more concerned about the economy, we will have shutdowns and the economy will be destroyed. If World War II America had handled the war the way we've handled this pandemic, Hitler would have marched into New York City and not stopped until he got to LA. And aside from a few brave men and women, no one would really have tried to stop him. No, it's past the point where this can be justified by saying that it's just like the flu. We've already passed 6 or 7 years of flu deaths in the year we've been dealing with the pandemic. And as we warned, the transfer of the disease has been accelerating, and we are losing close to 4,000 people per day, and our hospitals are overrun. This is not an area of the country where the pandemic is not becoming out of control, stressing the hospital system. And with the current surge, it can only expect it to get worse. Yes, I hear you. That's just a guess. but it was considered a guess when the pandemic started, and when it surged during the spring and summer, and when it was predicted that there would be a second wave, and when the second wave came, and now when the numbers continue to climb brutally every day. And why should we now assume that it isn't going to get worse as predicted by the same health experts that made the other predictions? We can go into the fact that these dangers were known by Donald Trump early in the pandemic, and that he did not do anything except set up a respectable vaccine program based on decades of previous research. We can discuss how it was promised that the Army would fast-track the vaccine delivery to needy Americans. And now we have given 1/10 the vaccinations that we were promised to have given by the first of the year. And the not-so-surprising revelation that, at the rate we are giving vaccines, it will take years, not months, to end this pandemic. But none of that matters. We have to save our country and our economy. Stop. Don't talk about Nancy Pelosi or Democrats being the problem. What is killing us has to be addressed. And the idea that there is no COVID, do you feel you can hear the latest statistics and say there is no COVID and still be able to sleep at night? It's past the point where your anger, denial, or anything else can save you from what should create outrage that we are where we are. Your hatred of Democrats doesn't justify this. Your idea that Trump is a savior of some kind does not justify the death of 350,000 Americans, a number that is growing alarmingly every day. We're past the point of excuses. Donald Trump will leave this to the states, as he has recently said. And if this disease has time to accelerate, as it has faithfully so far, the death rate will become so outrageous, there will be no more people admitting what is happening because there won't be any people. At the current rate of vaccinations, this disease will have years to grow, and our economy will go beyond tanking. There will be no economy. That has already started. Tens of millions of people are out of work. Businesses closing left and right. There is one answer. Donald Trump has to go. Because if things get worse, all the advertised disasters of a sudden growth of socialism, no, this will not be the first Democratic president. There was no socialism before. But all the other conservative talking points that you can think of, even if they were true, would be the least of your worries. You wouldn't even care about any of it because your life will be a nightmare as long as you have it, which may not be that long. Why does Donald Trump have to go? Because as Donald Trump should have done, Biden will invoke the Defense Production Act. And as Trump promised, the Army will get involved and fast-track the vaccines. Using the same act, money will be funneled into the states that need to distribute the vaccine. Testing will be done to prevent the spread of the virus. No, testing does not increase cases. Testing and tracing was used months ago to successfully bring down the level of COVID cases in a number of countries. In this case, the more weapons we have, the better. Your life is on the line. Money will be set aside to keep businesses open. Jobs will be created. Our economy will have a chance of coming back in a reasonable time. That will not happen as long as Donald Trump is in office. Do you believe in God? A small but significant point for some of you if you examine your lack of concern for human life. But I do believe in God, and I will suggest to you that a casual treatment of a disturbingly large number of your fellow human beings dying when it's possible to keep them alive is not at all in keeping with faith and our expected treatment of our fellow man. Or do you feel that politics or politicians can give you a pass on this bit of faith-based morality? Is the fact that you don't like Nancy Pelosi enough to violate your faith or your morality? We are past the point of excuses or the love of idols. There are truths greater than anything made of power, anger, or hate. If you feel that's not true, I wonder what will become of you. You can't escape the man upstairs, who in the end will be your final judge. Thank you for listening.